I will introduce our two competitors. First, hailing from the sunny side of Southern California by way of Penn University, Quaken QDIA, Alex, Fear the Wrath of Kahn! I hope that you have more energy planned for our performance than you do for your entrance. And next, from the mean streets of Orange County, California, where the juice is always worth the squeeze, Matt the Jackhammer Giovinazzo! All right, guys, I want this to be clean. No accusations of inflated expenses.
Nothing that bad.
No accusations of synthetic investments. And no accusations of hair restoration products. Let's get it on.
I don't think there's ever been an intro for a boxer or a debate that makes the contestant sound so soft with the rough streets of Southern California. And I thought this really would make me feel more like a boxer. But without the hood and no gloves, it's really just like I'm going to the spa. But I'm just going to keep it on because I'm kind of pot committed.
It's a little late now.
I'm committed at this point. But hi, Brian. How we doing? Good? Happy to be here. Thanks again for coming. We're going to finish with something hopefully fun for you, not that the rest hasn't been. But as Jeff mentioned, this is all about the future of QDIA. So we've got a few different, different subtopics within QDIA, talking about different approaches, different solutions, and we're going to take opposing sides because that's what a debate does. And look, this is less about kind of what's winning out today in terms of these different products, solutions, approaches, in terms of popularity or merits, and kind of more where's the industry going? What do we see happening, and what do we see winning out? And some of them are pretty obvious in terms of the direction we're headed, but I think it's fun in the least to hear both sides because those are potential obstacles or roadblocks that you may experience on the way, and that's what a debate is, so it's kind of the only option. So the first one that we have is performance. What is going to be the future of target date fund selection in terms of the primary criteria that we look at? Is it performance and fees, or is it suitability? So the way this works is we flip a coin to determine who has what side. So first step is I need a coin. So does anyone have, I'll take a $100 bill. I will take a 1 that has different connotations, but
wow.
Thank you for the quarter.
As millennials, we don't carry change, so.
I will find you at the happy hour in return. Thank you. Great contribution. This is the lovely state of New Hampshire. All right. Let's see what happens here. Heads all go performance fees. Tails all go suitability. The lights make it near impossible. Heads. So I will take performance and fees. And I'll start out. I mean, look, I've always thought performance and fees is going to continue to be the future of QDIA selection. Let's face it, these are the factors that plan sponsors, that clients are familiar with looking at, right? They're used to assessing performance and fees as it relates to target date funds, as it relates to every fund in the lineup. So look, it's hard enough to get a client to commit to a meeting period and cover everything that you have to cover. So Alex, to introduce a concept as arbitrary and complex as suitability, I will say that it has its merits, but I think that it's a tall task, and to devote an entire or half a meeting to that concept, it's just not really in our service model. So I think that just ease of conversation is one factor. I think also if you just consider, if you look at performance and fees, which is what the RPAG scorecard does, and for every fund in the lineup again. So if you're doing that for target date funds, it is going to lead to a target date fund that is higher quality, right? What's that going to do? It's going to lead to better results ongoing, a better participant experience. It's great for documentation and CYA, protecting you as a fiduciary and helping you protect that client. So I think in the end, these factors are what both leads to better results and is better for a business defense. I rest my case.
Everyone, good afternoon. Alex Kahn. Jeff, I think you figured out my college mascot was the Quaker. Was it the QDIA Quaker? I dislike that very much, but what I will say is, as a father to a daughter named Kennedy, I don't want any confusion about my campaign. It's to make target date funds great again. So we're going to stick to that, and I think the way of doing that is going to be suitability within target date fund selection. So performance and fees absolutely have been the primary determining factor when you ask advisors and sponsors in terms of how they're selecting their QDIA for the plan. But in my opinion, that's been driven by litigation and lawsuits, right? And of the two, it's really been around fees, right? You've seen no shortage of litigation in the large mega plan space around target date fund fees. But we've started to see that change, right? So there's now been 10 lawsuits filed by more, call it opportunistic plaintiffs firms, more specific to performance, right? So a lot of those include BlackRock, and when you look at what they're arguing, it's a tough argument to say, in hindsight, these target date funds had performed better than what was in your plan. But if you as a fiduciary or your sponsors are now concerned with having to have the best performing target date fund in the universe, that's a really difficult proposition, right? So if just performance or fees on its own isn't going to be suitable and you need the performance to be there, these are asset allocation investments, right? So if you're going to be looking strictly at performance, you're going to be buying high and selling low. And ultimately, I think that's going to be to the detriment of those participants if you're consistently trying to change out the target date funds. So fortunately, as RPAG members, you have access to target date fund suitability and the tool through the portal, right? That's a really easy way to have a fiduciary process to select your target date funds. And oh, by the way, that's something that we now know is held up within a federal court of law as being a prudent process for selecting target date funds. I think at the end of the day, you're actually going to be saving your sponsor time versus going in and always having to change their target date funds. And I think at the end of the day, you're going to differentiate yourself better versus peers out there in the marketplace. And ultimately, it's going to lead to better outcomes for the participants. So with that, I rest my case.
Not gonna lie, I found myself nodding along to a lot of those points.
The bell has sounded. We do not need additional punches thrown, Matt. Okay, now we're also going to test a little something. We've seen a lot of recency bias in our voting in recent meetings. So don't vote just on who you just heard last. We're going to go ahead and ask. If you think that Matt won that round, please raise your hand high so we can see. We're counting in the back. Okay, way up there, all the way to the sky. Okay. All right, if you think Alex won that session. Okay.
So Matt, it's kind of hard to see, but I don't think I saw any hands.
I can't see anything.
There were hands. Again, stay in your lane. You're not the judges, you're the competitors. Okay, round two, ding, ding, ding.
All right, round two, we have, what is the future in terms of QDIA adoption, in terms of, I guess, QDIA type? Is it target date funds? Will they hold on? Or is it going to be managed accounts? I apologize for the lack of theatrics. I'm not flipping this. I will drop it. So we'll just twist. I don't trust you. We'll go heads, I'll do TDFs. Tails, I'll do managed accounts. We have heads again. For consistency, I'll go first. With TDFs?
So you're doing target date funds?
Correct, Alex.
Okay, go ahead.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
All right, look, I know what Alex's argument is going to be for managed accounts, so let's just get this over with. It's personalization. And yes, that is a cute and, I don't want to say emerging trend, but it's valuable. But Alex, you know what's a bigger trend? Fee compression. And that still is the knock on managed accounts. There's value to personalization, but the costs are, to be dramatic, exorbitant. It's not just, think about the fee compression that we've seen in TDFs. I've been in the industry 11 years, used to be, upper 50s for an active TDF, lower 20s for a passive, and now you're at like in the 30s and in the single digits. So we've seen massive fee compression. I think that'll even continue with TDFs. We may see some fee compression with managed accounts. I'll concede that. We're talking about what is going to be, but I don't think that fee compression is going to be enough to really overtake TDFs. Also, if you think about that personalization, there is a lot of value in that. I'll stop talking and not give you too many positives, but
Continue.
that personalization is only valuable really if a participant engages. What I mean by that is, so the managed account, the algorithm is only as good as the data that it can see. So for example, if a participant has $1 million at one company, they terminate or hired by another company, that plan has managed accounts, they're enrolled in that managed account, they have no balance in that account, right? So the personalized allocation that they're getting in their new plan is actually wrong, right? Until they engage and they go and add their outside assets, their goals, all of that, that personalized allocation is actually not just incomplete, but probably wrong. So you're paying extra for something that is, technically inaccurate. Alex mentioned litigation and how it's not always necessarily founded and warranted. And I don't think that this is necessarily warranted, but I think that managed accounts is still an area that's kind of untested and potentially a hotbed for plaintiffs' attorneys. Again, just doesn't necessarily mean that something has to have gone wrong or it's wrong, but that high fees is an area where they chase, right? We know that performance benchmarking for target date funds is already nearly impossible. You've got all these glide paths that are so different. It flip-flops as asset classes go in and out of favor over different time periods. Benchmarking for managed accounts is literally impossible. You can kind of look at the underlying funds, but everyone has their own allocation, so that continues to be a challenge. And look, I will concede that the trend of personalization is real and here to stay. We have risk-based glide paths with FlexPath that has garnered $60 billion through you all. I think it's less about managed accounts and more about navigating that spectrum, right? There's target date funds on the furthest end that's low cost, not really personalized. Managed accounts are highest cost, most personalized, and there's going to be things, there already are things that sit in between. And I think that will be a valuable service that advisors provide now and in the future. It's not just TDF selection, but taking a step back and it's QDIA selection. So I do think that that is critical as there's more innovation and improvement in the space, but I don't think it's managed accounts.
Seems like a little filibustering from my competitor in this debate. The last thing I heard you say is you will concede personalization is going to be the trend. So let's think about it. Target date funds, they're 31 years old, right? They're a technology. What technology do you use today that you used 30 years ago that's remained unchanged? And no, Brian, a toothbrush doesn't really count as technology. So think about the landscape that exists, right? We know participants are still largely misallocated. Younger participants are often too conservatively invested. Older participants are often too aggressively invested within retirement plans. We also know to the extent that participants engage or use professionally managed type of solutions, target date funds or managed accounts, that they've overwhelmingly had better results than those that try to build their own allocation on their own, to the tune of about 400 basis points annualized over the last 20 years. So how can we encourage participants to save within those professionally managed approaches? I think we've tried it with target date funds, right? Re-enrollment's been a great idea for a lot of years, but when you look at the landscape out there, the target date fund utilization or percentage of plan assets in target date funds has started to kind of draw off a little bit. And when you re-enroll a participant into a target date fund, for many participants, their optimal allocation is going to look very similar to what that glide path is, and that's going to be a good fit. But at the end of the day, people just want personalization, right? So I heard someone use the analogy, if you go and buy a lottery ticket, you have just the same amount of odds of winning as if you do the quick pick, where they just automatically generate numbers for you, versus if you pick your own numbers, right? We all pick our own numbers because you have a feeling that you're going to do better, right? People want to pick their own investments. They want to have some sort of allocation or say in terms of how they're being invested, and managed accounts is going to allow for that additional personalization on their behalf. There's a study out there, Invesco. They said, similar results, but more in a studied capacity, is that participants that they surveyed, 65% wanted flexibility and risk. That number goes up when you look at high income earners. So again, I think that target date funds still will have a place, but the future is going to be towards more personalization. It's going to be towards more managed accounts. Matt, you mentioned some of the potential drawbacks that I think exist today, but I think we're going to work past that. So, again, fees on managed accounts, I think they're going to continue to come down. Potentially there's some litigation that exists with managed accounts when you look at AMA and you have advisors that are collecting a fee there. But again, as those reach scale, they're going to allow for costs to come down in these types of products. We're seeing more and more ways to incorporate managed accounts within retirement plans. So whether that's a dual QDIA, where it's going to be more implemented later in life for participants. We're hearing a lot about income. We're going to debate income here in a second. But when you think about how you might want to incorporate that into the plan, again, managed accounts would be kind of a natural way for that to take place. So we're going to figure out the benchmarking of these. I think expenses need to come down. We're going to see more optionality in how managed accounts can be implemented. But at the end of the day, I think it's absolutely going to be the future.
You said I filibustered?
Okay, so it occurred to me that there are people in the room that Matt calls on, there are people in the room that Alex calls on, and I don't want you to feel bad about voting against them, so they're not even going to know who you're voting for right now. So,
Can't see anything
if
anyway.
you vote for this person, raise your hand. Okay.
Counts?
That had to have been me.
Okay, all right, and if you vote for this guy, raise your hand. Ooh, okay.
I think it was the first
Keep
one.
him back up. I'm not done yet. There you go. I was watching you. You had your hand. Okay. Round 3. Ding, ding, ding.
We do have 3 other cities to go off of by now. All right. Next, Alex spilled the beans. We've got lifetime income. I'm just going to come out and take the against, because that's what I've done in all 3 other cities. So it's going to be a lot easier for me. Is that okay?
I hadn't done these in the other cities, so I guess.
Okay, fair enough. I will do the against, and I will preface this by saying we had a lovely panel just now. So before I bash it, I actually really did think that was great. I learned a lot, and Brian did a great job hosting it. And now for the gloves to come on. No, look, I think as it stands today, we were trying to find, I was involved in the conference prepping. We were trying to find more people for that panel, but we just, we searched far and wide, coast to coast, and there was nothing. No responses. 2 people. That was it. The only solutions out there. So, look, we all keep hearing about lifetime income, and we're learning more and more. That was a great session. But as it stands today, there's just not a lot of products. Now, again, this is about the future. I will concede more are going to launch. But I think there's still just a lot of complexity. I had like a T-table going comparing these different solutions, and it was like, okay, this one's all protected and 5%, and then this one is part of it, but it doesn't matter because it's annuitized. There's a lot going on there in terms of portability. Cost is still a challenge. Portability, I think, is still a challenge. I did always view this as a huge positive for keeping assets in the plan. But what I've learned is a lot or most of the time that actually isn't necessarily the case. So in terms of who's driving assets, it's the people in this room. It's advisors, record keepers. Is it in those parties' best interest to have encourage assets to leave the plan? No, we're trying to do the opposite. So I think that's certainly one consideration. And I still think that the big issue is accumulation, right? We know that we have a savings crisis. People aren't saving enough. People aren't retiring with enough in their account when they're retired. So that our energy really should be on that accumulation issue and the savings crisis and getting people to save more and more, not necessarily on decumulation. I don't know how much annuitizing, $80,000 when you're retiring is really helping you in terms of longevity or, mentally like lowering your risk and not putting that money at risk. And then to think, for some of these solutions, you're actually annuitizing a portion of your account. So now it's like 30% of your balance you're annuitizing. You're gonna get like 18 cents a month, and that really isn't moving the needle.
I think you miscalculated, Matt, when you mentioned that there was 2 people that wanted to argue for income, because those are some guaranteed votes that I have. The last conference I was at, someone raised their hand and they said, why are we keep hearing about income? Why do we have to keep talking about this? And I heard a really candid response from one of the panelists, and I'm gonna share that with you. It was, when you look at who's talking about this, right? It's the largest asset management firm or firms in the world. It's the largest insurers in the world, and this is a priority of theirs. So when you think about the marketing spend that they're committed, your clients are going to be hearing about this, and they're absolutely going to be asking you about it. So at the end of the day, you need to make sure that you're in a position to understand what the potential benefits are for income, and you need to be in a position to be able to share that with your clients, right? So let's look at the landscape and look to why these firms think it's so important that income's going to be the future, right? It has to do with the fact that defined benefits have gone away, and they've gone away really rapidly. So if you're in 1975, about 75% of Americans had access to a defined benefit plan. Today, that number is down to about 10%. So outside of Social Security, if you want any sort of guaranteed income in retirement, you need some sort of annuity, right? And those that have larger account balances, I think, are being taken care of, whereas the majority of Americans are not. So guaranteed income is a way to provide that for them, right? And what is that going to solve for? That's going to solve for any sort of market fluctuation that comes when they're needing to draw down their income in retirement. Right? If you look at a 10, 15, 20% shock to the market, that has the ability to absolutely torpedo someone's saving in retirement. Right? Beyond that, we're all living longer. So if you and your spouse are 65 years old today, there's about a 50-50 chance that one of you is going to live to the age of 90. Right? So not only do you have to now manage your own retirement savings, right, in place of a defined benefit that historically existed for you, you're being forced to do so longer. 6 million Americans still live with Alzheimer's or dementia. So in terms of, mentally incapacitated, like my counterpart here in the debate, maybe a low blow, it's a hard proposition, right? So at the end of the day, income or annuities, right, is the right thing to do for a lot of participants. Beyond that, when you think about how these are beginning to be implemented into the industry, right, we've solved a lot of this through Secure 2.0. And I think that's going to do for income what PPA had done for target date funds, right? So first off, we solved the portability issue, right? And that's allowed for more and more products to be brought to the market. We solved and provided safe harbor for sponsors when selecting this. Matt mentioned some of the disclosure requirements. Participants are going to start to see what their income or what their account balance translates to in retirement. Hopefully it's not 18 cents, right? You can't invest your way out of a savings problem. But for those that have saved adequately, and there's enough of those out there, Matt, this is a way to provide income for them in retirement. I think it's going to happen slowly. I think it's going to happen through target date funds or managed accounts. I think it's going to happen through products that offer the income component built in that and some of them don't have an additional cost, right? So you're giving the optionality of income in some of those that I think are going to work, but there's no downside to a participant who wants to take their money to leave, right? You're just simply providing that optionality, and I think more and more participants are going to realize and want to take advantage of that.
All righty, thank you. And nice way to perform through the ruckus. I promise the building is not collapsing. I thought it might be for a bit, but we're trying to address that. All right, so everybody check your scorecards. If you believe this round goes to this competitor, raise your hand. Keep them up, keep them up. Okay, if you believe the round went to this competitor, raise your hand. Oh man, I have to use all my toes.
So I was looking for Jess from Nuveen, and she walked right out, so I have no idea.
All right, final and deciding round 4.
So who won it?
You've got, that was just the third round.
I just want to, this one.
Excuse me?
Okay, I'm sorry, Judge. All right.
Your job's to fight, not to count.
All right, you do it. Good luck with the light. I forgot we were supposed to do the other way this time.
Wait, so heads is...
So what we're doing this one is co-manufactured, I told you. Co-manufactured for and against.
Okay, so it's heads. But you didn't call it.
So you go heads I do heads you do co-manufactured for, tails you do co-manufactured against. So you have to, it's whatever you flip. You're the flipper. Have you not known what I've been doing?
So it's tails.
Okay, so you're doing co-manufactured against.
Okay.
And you can go first this time.
Okay. Well, I learned in debates you're allowed to make up statistics, so directionally this is going to be correct, but it might not be exactly accurate to the number. But here's what we know, right? In 2012, 80% roughly of plans used their record keeper's proprietary target date fund option, right? If you look at where that's at today, it's now about 10%. So plans have largely left their record keepers' proprietary options, and I have to think that was for a reason, right? Target date funds, unless you voted for managed accounts, are the most important investment option within a DC menu for participants, right? So we need to make sure with the target date fund, more than any other investment option, that we're getting the best target date for the participants within that plan. And I think at the end of the day, if you look to non-proprietary options, that allows for more opportunity. And I see that, co-manufactured has done really well in a rising rate environment, as we saw, in the past. But what happens now when the Fed, and I heard today, maybe one rate cut this year? What happens when the Fed starts cutting rates, right? Won't stable value underperform traditional fixed income?
Okay, you're done now. Well, since you're allowed to make up statistics, 98% of what Alex just said is wrong and flagrantly offensive. No, so look, I think there's definitely validity to plans, the industry moving away from proprietary, from a record keeper's option. I don't know what stats Alex made up. I think it's like 20% of plans today use their record keeper's TDF. That's definitely gone down. I would argue, and the whole point of co-manufactured is that it's co-manufactured, meaning there's multiple parties at play. So the idea is to do two things, really provide an economic lever for that record keeper where they can share in that savings to the plan, to participants, to you by lowering their fees, but not have it actually be proprietary. So there's an independent fiduciary that oversees it, and that's the whole point, is there is kind of a wall there between the record keeper and this offering. And the idea is really to take the flagship offerings, the best, the home cooking, the best thinking of an asset manager, their target date fund, and make a slight twist to that. So Alex astutely pointed out that a lot of the time that involves utilizing stable value. So overall what that's doing, it's not just meant to be a hedge when rates rise, it's smoothing volatility, it's reducing volatility, and just providing you with a very similar experience overall with a slightly lower risk return profile. To put some numbers around it, thank you for mentioning performance has been great. It has. So long-term performance has been great as bonds, especially in 2022, got their teeth kicked in. So pure performance for co-manufactured has won out. Even in a year like last year, though, so bonds returned 5.5% on the year. That was a greater return than what most stable values were paying. So while the kind of flagship traditional offerings slightly outperformed the co-manufactured equivalent with stable value, the risk-adjusted numbers, the Sharpe ratios, were still higher for the co-manufactured option. So that, again, that volatility reduction is paying dividends. And to put some legit numbers around this, because I don't make up statistics, so if you look at FlexPath Index Moderate Retirement, the down capture in 2023, again, you would expect like the traditional version to do much better. Down capture was 89%. That's versus like a target date fund benchmark. And Index Select Moderate Retirement was 65%. So you have a 24% improvement in down capture from co-manufactured. And that volatility reduction, that downside protection, is what is leading to higher net Sharpe ratios. So in the end, you've got, I think it's definitely prudent to at least explore with the record keeper what the concession is. If you use a co-manufactured or proprietary options, you got that on your side. You got better performance and risk-adjusted performance when rates are going up. When rates are going down, you have better risk-adjusted performance. You can kind of infer, because we're making things up, that when rates are static, you're still going to get better risk-adjusted numbers. So I think there's no downside. That's all I got.
Ding, 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 ding. Mr. Coombs, might you join us? All right, for our final scoring, if you believe this last round was won by this gentleman, raise your hand.
I think that's you.
Yeah, I think so too.
No whispering among the contestants, please. If you believe this gentleman won the round, please raise your hand.
Thanks, Ben.
All right,
respect
please
the
stand
different opinion.
and face your judges. Get these garbage chairs out of the way. There you go.
Who are we facing? No.
Since there was no knockout, we go to the judges' scorecards. The first judge scores the fight 39-37 in favor of Alex.
Ooh, it's it's pretty big.
The second judge scores the fight 39-37 in favor of Matt. The third judge scores the fight 39-37 in favor of the defending champion, Matt Giovinazzo! Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll take your payment
Thank
later.
you, guys.